It was an ordinary day, the kind of afternoon most people wouldn't remember. The sun was bright, but not too warm, casting a soft golden hue over the small suburban town. People were going about their routines, some coming home from work early, others stopping to grab groceries or run errands. Families moved through their days with the quiet comfort of familiarity. It was the kind of day where everything felt normal, safe, predictable. Emily Carter, 22 years old, was one of those people. A bright and cheerful college student, she was home for spring break, staying with her parents for the week. She had plans to catch up with friends, binge-watch some of her favorite shows, and help her mum around the house. That afternoon, she decided to take a quick trip to the local Walmart to pick up a few things. Some toiletries, a charger for her phone, and maybe a snack or two. It wasn't anything unusual. She told her mum she'd be back in less than an hour, grabbed her keys, and headed out. The Walmart she visited wasn't far, just a 10-minute drive from her house. It was a typical large box store, sitting at the edge of a busy shopping plaza. Families with kids walked in and out, cars circled the lot looking for spots, and shopping carts rattled across the pavement. The automatic doors slid open with their familiar whoosh as Emily stepped inside. Security footage from the entrance later confirmed the timeline. Emily entered the store at exactly 3:17 p.m. She wore a light grey hoodie, blue jeans, and white sneakers. Her long dark hair was tied loosely in a bun, and she carried a small shoulder bag. She paused for a moment at the front of the store, glanced at her phone, and then began walking toward the personal care aisle. Her body language was calm, casual, just like anyone else shopping on a Wednesday afternoon. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. To employees working that day, she didn't stand out. One cashier remembered her vaguely, saying she thought Emily might have asked where the phone accessories were. Another stock associate believed he saw her by the refrigerated section, but he wasn't entirely sure. No one noticed anything strange. No one reported hearing anything. There was no shouting, no argument, no scene. Emily Carter was just one of hundreds of shoppers moving through the store that day. She wasn't carrying much. No cart, just a small basket she picked up at the entrance. Her phone, later found in her car, showed that she had texted a friend around 3:20 p.m. saying, "Running errands, call you later." It was a quick, casual message, typical of someone going about their day. Outside, nothing appeared unusual. The parking lot was busy, but not chaotic. Her car, a blue Honda Civic, was parked near the front, in clear view of one of the security cameras. People were constantly coming and going, families loading their trunks, employees gathering carts, delivery trucks pulling in and out of loading bays. Everything about that day blended into the ordinary rhythm of life. No one could have guessed that something was about to go terribly wrong. There were no signs, no warnings, no ominous indicators. Just a girl running errands in a safe, familiar place. And yet, in the middle of that everyday setting, in a store filled with cameras, customers, and fluorescent lights, Emily Carter would somehow vanish, leaving behind a silence that no one could explain. The security footage told a story, but only half of it. At exactly 3:17 p.m., the sliding doors of Walmart opened, and Emily Carter walked in. She looked calm, her steps unhurried, like someone who had done this 100 times before. Dressed in her light grey hoodie and fitted jeans, her white sneakers made little noise on the tiled floor. Her phone was in her hand, her gaze occasionally flicking to the screen as she typed. She didn't appear worried. She didn't look lost. She walked with purpose, disappearing into the heart of the store. The cameras at the entrance caught every detail. The way her hair bounced slightly as she moved. The way she smiled briefly as she passed by an older couple. The small red keychain, swinging from her purse. From there, another camera picked her up in the personal care section. She paused for a moment, examined a shelf of shampoo bottles, then moved on. She stopped again by the electronics aisle. Her face lit up as she browsed, the chargers and accessories. It was the kind of aimless browsing people did when they weren't in a hurry. Nothing about her behavior suggested anything out of the ordinary. The system that operated Walmart's surveillance was expansive, but not flawless. Dozens of cameras lined the ceiling, covering most, but not all corners of the store. There were blind spots, places where certain angles weren't captured, or areas where shelving blocked views. Still, in a store like that, most movements were traceable, or so it was believed. What made Emily's case so disturbing was not just that she disappeared, it was how cleanly it happened. One moment she was there, the next she was gone. The footage showed her walking down one of the middle aisles, near the frozen food section. She looked at her phone once more, then turned into the next aisle. That was the last confirmed sighting. From that point on, the footage offered no answers. She didn't walk back toward the front. She didn't approach the registers. She wasn't seen near the exit doors. No camera caught her leaving through any emergency exit. There were no alerts triggered. No suspicious activity was detected. She simply never appeared again on any of the available recordings. Technicians reviewed the security footage frame by frame. They ran timestamps from every angle. They tracked every person who entered the store that day and tried to match them to an exit. Everyone was accounted for, except Emily. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. Store employees were brought in for questioning. Some remembered seeing her, some didn't. One worker believed she had asked about where to find batteries. Another mentioned that she thought Emily was on her phone the entire time. Nothing concrete, nothing helpful. No one recalled hearing a scream, no loud noises, no scuffle. There was no sign of panic. No customers reported seeing anything unusual. Just the usual buzz of a typical Wednesday afternoon. What disturbed investigators most was the clean timeline. She walked in. She browsed. She turned into an aisle. Then nothing. The exit doors had sensors, and none of them were triggered in a way that would suggest someone had left in a rush or snuck out. No alarms went off. No signs of forced entry or exit. Even the emergency exits, which remained locked and monitored, showed no unusual activity. If someone had taken her, they had done it with surgical precision, without being seen, heard, or detected in any way that technology could catch. If she had left on her own, she had done it invisibly, slipping through one of the most monitored environments imaginable. The lack of footage showing her exit was the one detail that disturbed people the most. In a world filled with cameras, with movement tracked second by second, her disappearance defied logic. There were no signs of struggle, no commotion, no overturned shelves, no dropped items, no misplaced shoes or discarded belongings. The aisle where Emily was last seen remained perfectly intact, undisturbed like any other part of the store. It was the frozen food section, sandwiched between the snack aisle and household goods. That corner of the store typically stayed quiet, a spot where people passed through quickly, grabbing what they needed and moving on. On that particular afternoon, there were shoppers nearby, but no one seemed to notice anything out of place. When investigators questioned customers who had checked out around the time Emily was last seen, not one of them reported witnessing anything unusual. No one saw a young woman being followed. No one heard a scream. No one noticed someone behaving erratically or trying to lead someone away. It was as though whatever happened to her had been perfectly invisible to everyone else. Even employees stationed nearby didn't recall anything. A stock clerk was working in the adjacent aisle, organizing cereal boxes. He said he didn't hear anything out of the ordinary. A woman shopping just a few feet away later told police she was busy comparing frozen pizzas and didn't notice anyone else around her. There were no calls for help, no emergency buttons pushed, nothing that would normally accompany a person being taken or going missing in a public setting. That silence became one of the most chilling aspects of the case, the complete absence of noise, of warning, of witnesses. It left everyone wondering how such a thing could happen in a store full of people. Even when the store was searched thoroughly, every corner, storage area, backroom and restroom, nothing belonging to Emily was found. Not a strand of hair, not a scrap of clothing, not even a dropped receipt or an item she had picked up and abandoned. Her basket was never recovered. It was as if she never picked up anything at all, Or if she had, she took it with her into whatever space she disappeared into. That detail troubled detectives. People leave traces. Always. And yet, in this case, there was not even the smallest one. The layout of the store was examined closely. Floor plans were reviewed. Blueprints checked. Security and maintenance teams confirmed there were no hidden doors, no crawl spaces, no openings that could have been used to sneak someone out. All exits were accounted for. All employee access areas were locked or monitored. The loading dock had been quiet that day. No deliveries were reported during the time Emily was inside. Trucks didn't pull in or out until nearly an hour after her last known sighting. There was no possible exit route that didn't go through a camera zone. If someone had tried to kidnap her or harm her, they would have had to do it silently, swiftly, and without alarming anyone else. They would have had to remove her from the store without passing a single lens or being seen by a single person. That kind of precision seemed impossible, and yet there was no other explanation that made sense. Law enforcement reviewed every second of footage surrounding the area. They checked the reflections on freezers, looked for shadows, for flickers of movement, anything at all. But there was nothing. Emily turned down an aisle, and then she was gone. She didn't come out the other side. She didn't turn back around. There were no glitches in the footage, no camera failures. Everything kept recording normally. She just never came into frame again. This lack of physical evidence, no sound, no witnesses, no disturbed items, created a silence that was deafening. It was a quiet, clean vanishing, one that left behind no trace, no explanation, and no direction for where to search next. 2 weeks had passed since Emily Carter vanished inside the Walmart, and her case was already making its rounds across the internet. What began as a missing persons report in a quiet suburban town had grown into something larger, something far stranger. Online forums filled with speculation. Local news kept the story in circulation, urging anyone with information to come forward. But the leads had dried up. The police had no suspects, no witnesses, and nothing new to follow. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. An unmarked envelope arrived at the police station. Inside was a flash drive. No note, no return address, no explanation, just the drive. The footage it contained wasn't part of the official Walmart security system. The timestamps didn't match those already reviewed by law enforcement. At first, investigators assumed it was fake, a hoax, another cruel prank from someone online trying to stir up attention. But when they played it, the mood in the room changed. What they saw hadn't been released publicly. It appeared to come from one of the older, lesser-used cameras near the electronics aisle, one that wasn't included in the main batch of security videos due to a blind spot in the system. And on it was Emily. She stood alone in the electronics aisle, near the wall of flat-screen TVs. The lighting flickered slightly in that part of the store, casting a bluish hue over the floor. Emily wasn't moving much, just slowly pacing, her body stiff, her shoulders hunched. She kept looking over her shoulder, glancing behind her as if someone were following her. But there was no one there. The camera angle clearly showed the length of the aisle, and it was empty. Completely empty. She turned, checked again, and then held her phone up in front of her, typing something. The footage zoomed in just enough to catch a glimpse of her screen. The text she was writing never sent. It remained unsent in the draft bar. Her fingers trembled as she typed. Her eyes kept flicking upward, towards something the camera couldn't see, something just above or behind it perhaps. There was a sense of tension in her body, as if she was holding her breath. Then, slowly, her posture changed. She looked directly into the camera. Her face, previously anxious and tight with fear, relaxed. A small, eerie smile spread across her lips. It wasn't warm or friendly. It wasn't even calm. It was the kind of smile that didn't belong in that situation, a look that sent chills down the spines of everyone who watched it. Her eyes seemed blank, distant, as though something else had taken over. She kept her gaze locked on the lens for a few seconds longer. Then she turned and walked out of frame. That was it. No one followed her into that aisle. No one was seen walking out behind her. And again, there was no footage showing where she went next. But what made this different from the other clips was the atmosphere. It was off, subtly wrong. The camera didn't glitch, but the lighting flickered strangely. A soft distortion lined the edges of the frame, barely noticeable but undeniably there, like the static on an old TV. When investigators ran the footage through their systems, they couldn't trace the source. The video file had no metadata, no origin path. It didn't match Walmart's camera specifications, yet it had clearly been filmed inside that store. The smile Emily gave was what stayed with people the most. Cold, empty, as if she was no longer afraid, as if whatever had been following her was now inside her. As soon as the mysterious footage was leaked online, theories flooded every corner of the internet. Reddit threads exploded with activity. YouTubers dissected every frame, analyzing Emily's smile, her posture, the lighting in the background. People slowed the footage down, zoomed in on reflections in the television screens, and adjusted the color levels to search for anything that might explain what had happened. But instead of finding clarity, the video only deepened the mystery. And that's when the theories began to shift from criminal to something far stranger. At first, people assumed it was a kidnapping. That was the simplest explanation. Perhaps someone had lured her, threatened her, or taken her through one of the few blind spots in the store. But nothing supported that theory. There were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses, and no video showing her leaving. So the idea evolved. Maybe she had been stalked. Some believed she had a secret admirer or an obsessed follower who had learned her routine and struck at the perfect moment. But again, there was no record of suspicious activity in her life, no strangers lingering around the store, and no one in the footage behaving out of place. Then came the more unsettling theories. Some users began to claim that the way Emily acted in the leaked footage wasn't just fear, it was recognition, like she saw something the camera couldn't. A few people claimed they had experienced similar feelings in large stores, where certain aisles seemed too quiet or strangely cold. One thread, which gained thousands of upvotes in hours, detailed a phenomenon some called the liminal shift, a term used to describe the moment when familiar places suddenly feel unnatural, like stepping into a version of reality that's slightly wrong. People began analyzing the Walmart itself, trying to see if the store had any strange history. They discovered that the land the store had been built on once housed an old textile factory that burned down in the 1970s. A few conspiracy theorists claimed that the fire had never been properly documented, and that several workers had gone missing during the cleanup process. Others suggested that the store was built over a thin spot, a location where reality is more vulnerable to rips or shifts, something often discussed in fringe paranormal communities. The smile Emily gave in the video became iconic. People captured screenshots, compared it to others, debated whether it looked human at all. Some believed her eyes looked darker in that moment, that her pupils were slightly larger than normal, that her movements before the smile had a mechanical quality to them. A few even claimed that when you watched the video at a slower speed, you could see a shadow move across the back wall, something that wasn't there before. None of it was proven, of course, but that didn't stop the theories. Podcasts picked up the story. So did TikTok creators, layering creepy music over clips of the footage and asking viewers to find what others had missed. Everyone wanted to be the one to uncover the secret. But as the story spread, so did the fear. Some users reported having nightmares after watching the footage too many times. Others said they saw Emily's face in reflections or heard faint whispers after playing the clip alone at night. It all sounded ridiculous until people started reporting that other women had gone missing in similarly strange ways across the country. A pattern began to emerge, but one too vague to hold on to. Different states, different stores, different circumstances, but always the same theme. Someone disappears in a public place, without a trace, without a witness, and sometimes with just a few seconds of unexplained footage left behind. The case had shifted from a local tragedy into something bigger, something much harder to define. And while official investigators still clung to logic, the online world had started looking elsewhere for answers. As the weeks turned into months, Emily's case refused to fade away. It lingered not just in the minds of her family and local law enforcement, but across the internet, where her name had become synonymous with a new kind of fear, the fear of disappearing in plain sight. Her family continued their search, refusing to believe she could simply vanish without a trace. They hired private investigators, distributed flyers in neighboring towns, and set up a tip line that remained open 24/7. But with each passing day, the trail grew colder. There were no ransom calls, no new sightings, no strange activity on her phone or bank accounts. It was as though her life had been paused mid-sentence, leaving behind only silence. The Walmart store where she vanished struggled to move on. Though it remained open to the public, things were never quite the same. Employees became uneasy, especially those who worked the shift that day. Several quit within the first month. Others requested transfers or moved to the day shift to avoid working late. Some spoke of an eerie atmosphere in the back aisles, particularly the one where Emily was last seen. They described a chill in the air, a strange hum, a feeling of being watched. A few claimed to see fleeting figures in the reflection of the freezer doors or to hear footsteps when no one else was around. Management dismissed these stories as stress-induced hallucinations, but the unease persisted. Shoppers also noticed strange things. People would sometimes pause mid-aisle, look around nervously, and leave without finishing their purchases. There were incidents where customers claimed their phones suddenly lost signal only in that one part of the store. One woman even reported that her watch jumped forward by 2 minutes while standing near the electronics section. Though minor, these reports added fuel to the growing rumors surrounding the place. Eventually, some locals began avoiding the store altogether, preferring to drive an extra few miles rather than step into the place where a girl had disappeared without a sound. Meanwhile, the online world continued to dig. Internet sleuths compiled timelines, cross-referenced store blueprints, and mapped out the locations of other similar disappearances. Some users began referring to the space where Emily vanished as a doorway, not a literal one, but a conceptual threshold, something that could open and close without being seen, something not bound by the rules of space and time. The term caught on, spawning dozens of theory videos, articles, and even fictional adaptations. But beneath the creative retellings was a shared, unsettling idea that Emily had stumbled into something not meant to be found. The private investigators hired by Emily's parents followed every lead they received, no matter how far-fetched. They interviewed a former Walmart janitor who claimed he once saw someone walk into an aisle and never come out, years before Emily's disappearance. They tracked down a trucker who remembered seeing a girl who looked like Emily at a rest stop. In another state, though the sighting was never confirmed, they even consulted a physicist who had written about time anomalies in commercial spaces. Nothing led to anything concrete, but the desperation in their search never wavered. Her room at home remained untouched. Her toothbrush still sat in its holder. Her calendar, still marked with mundane reminders, study group at 5 p.m, call grandma, pick up shampoo. Each item was a painful reminder that she had not planned to leave. Nothing in her life hinted at a desire to escape or disappear. Her social media remained frozen, her last post a simple selfie with the caption, "Running errands, be back soon." That sentence haunted her friends and family. Be back soon. 3 simple words, spoken with the kind of casual confidence that comes from never expecting something to go wrong.